Hi, I'm Patrick Reagan. Welcome to the TCP/IP, Part 16, Configuring and Troubleshooting Client DNS. This video concludes the 4 videos on DNS. It starts by showing you how to configure DNS settings on Windows and Linux clients, and then to use standard tools to troubleshoot client DNS issues. For those who are going to take the A+ exam, there are practice questions toward the end of the video. If you like this video, click the like button. And if you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. By now, you should understand without DNS services, your network will not function and users will not be able to access internal or internet resources. If you are having problems with DNS, you first need to check IP configuration, including IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS settings. Make sure DNS server settings are pointing to and using active DNS servers. By now, from the previous videos, you already know how to configure the client to point to DNS servers. Most of the time, you will configure DHCP servers to hand out the IP configuration, including the DNS server. The main IP version 4 configuration screen, you can configure up to 2 DNS servers. However, if you click the Advanced button and click the DNS tab, you can add additional DNS servers. You can also specify a domain in the Append these DNS suffixes fields, and you can specify additional search domains. Therefore, when you try to access a PC1 and you have a corporate.example.com in the Append these DNS suffixes, it will automatically try to find the IP address assigned to pc1.corporate.example.com. Note, you can put multiple DNS suffixes to search, which will tell DNS to go down the list until it finds a match or it reaches the end. If no record is found, it will tell you an unknown host or name or service not found or similar error message. In Windows, to see your DNS servers that you're using in the DNS suffix search list, use the following command: ipconfig/all. As you can see, the DNS suffix search list has domain1.rootdomain.com. As you can see with this command, when you ping server 1, it will automatically add the DNS search suffix and look for that host name or domain. If you don't want to append when perform actions on a command, you would add the period at the end to indicate that the name is an absolute or complete name, such as pc1.corporate.example.com, period. To flush the DNS cache on a local computer, you need to execute the following command: ipconfig/flush DNS. This comes in handy when you recently access DNS servers for resolution, you make a change on the DNS server, and you don't want to wait until the cache value has expired. Remember, DNS entries will stay cached until the TTL value is reached. You can also reboot the computer to refresh the cache. If you ping by name, your system will automatically perform a DNS lookup and give you the address to ping. If you ping -A in the address, the -A will attempt to do a reverse DNS lookup on the IP address if one exists. If it cannot find a host or the wrong site comes up when accessing the site, you need to ensure that you spelled the host name or domain correctly. If you're responsible for the DNS records for the host name or domain, you need to check the resource records on the DNS server to make sure they are correct. In Windows, to push a computer to register its DNS name and IP address with the DNS server, you can use the following command at an administrative command prompt: ipconfig/register DNS. nslookup is a command line tool used for querying the domain name system or DNS to obtain domain name or IP address mapping information. Commonly used to troubleshoot DNS related issues, verify DNS configuration, and retrieve DNS records such as A records, MX records, CNAME records, and so forth. When you run nslookup, it sends a query to a DNS server to resolve the domain name to an IP address or vice versa. The DNS server responds with the relevant record, which the tool then displays. You can perform forward lookups by typing nslookup in the name. You can perform reverse lookups by typing nslookup in the IP address. If you can resolve from name to IP address, but you cannot resolve from IP address to name, most likely the reverse lookup has not been set up or the PTR record has not been added to the reverse lookup zone. If you type in nslookup and press enter, you enter nslookup interactive mode. It will immediately show the DNS server that you're connected to. If you type in a host name or domain, it will attempt to resolve to an IP address. If you type in an IP address, it will attempt to resolve to a host name or domain. While in interactive mode, you can change to another DNS server by using the server command. By default, nslookup interactive mode will be a lookup a records. To change the search for a different DNS resource record type, you would use one of the following commands shown on the screen. To change the MX record, you would execute setType equals MX record. To switch back to the A record, execute the setType equals A command. Note, you can also use the setQueryType equals option. This screen shows switching to the MX record and then showing the MX records for the domain1.rootdomain.com. You access a resource including ping in a resource and it comes up with the incorrect DNS, the DNS servers have the correct entries, and you are pointing to the correct DNS server, you could check your host file to see if it's being used to override DNS queries. In Linux, to see the DNS servers, you'd use the cat/etc/resolve.conf, the nmcli command combined with the grep command, or resolve ctl status command based on your Linux distribution as shown on the screen. To configure DNS resolution by specifying the DNS servers to use, you would modify the /etc/resolve.conf file with a text editor such as Nano. To clear the DNS cache in Linux, you would have to use one of the following commands: sudo sysmd resolve-flush-caches, or sudo /etc/init.d/named restart. You may need to use your favorite search engine to determine the correct command based on your Linux distribution. DIG, short for Domain Information Groper, is a command line tool used to perform DNS lookups. While nslookup is found in Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, DIG is usually found on Linux systems, but can be downloaded and installed in Windows. It queries DNS servers to retrieve information about domain names such as IP addresses, mail servers, or other DNS records like A, MX, NS, TXT, and so forth. It is widely used for DNS troubleshooting, domain verification, and obtaining detailed information about DNS records. When you use the DIG, it sends a DNS query to a specified DNS server or uses system default DNS server. The server responds with the DNS information requested, such as IP address, mail servers, or other DNS queries. To query the A record for domain, you would use dig example.com. You can specify the DNS record type you want to retrieve, such as MX, NS, and text. For example, to retrieve the MX record, you would use dig example.com MX. To retrieve the NS record for the example.com domain, you would use dig example.com NS. For a reverse lookup or PTR record, you use the -X option, dig -X in the IP address. Here are two examples of using the dig command. Remember, Active Directory is heavily dependent on DNS. Make sure you have the _msdcs folder and the entries for _gc, _kerberos, _kpassword, and _LDAP records for each domain controller. If the entries are missing, execute the ipconfig/register DNS command from the domain controller, or stop and start the net logon service. A server reboot will also work. For public DNS, you can retrieve all DNS records for a domain. Some of these sites shown on the screen. Question: you want to identify which DNS server a computer is configured to use. Which of the following commands should the technician use? Answer: nslookup. Question: you're writing documentation regarding a company's server farm. You need to confirm the server name for all Linux servers. Which of the following commands should you run? Answer: nslookup. Question: you need to verify the external record for SMTP traffic. The engineer logged into the server and entered the nslookup command. Which of the following commands should the engineer send before entering the DNS name? Answer: set query type equals MX. While most would use the set type equals command, set query type equals also works. Question: you need to query the NS for the remote applications. Which of the following commands would best help the administrator accomplish this task? Answer: dig. Question: which of the following commands can be used to display the addresses of the DNS address on a Windows computer? Choose all that apply. Answer: ipconfig/all. Question: after several changes to the network, you need to ensure a client is checking for new hostname and IP pairings. Which of the following commands are used to force new lookups? Answer: ipconfig/flush DNS. For more information, visit these sites. In summary, if you're having problems with DNS, you first need to check IP configuration, including IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, and DNS settings. Make sure DNS server settings are pointing to and using active DNS servers. To flush the DNS cache on a local computer, you need to execute the following command: ipconfig/flush DNS. nslookup is a command line tool used for querying the domain name system, or DNS, to obtain domain name or IP address mapping information. dig, short for Domain Information Grouper, is a command line tool used to perform DNS lookups. Thank you for watching this video. The next video will be TCP/IP Part 17 Introduction to Dynamic Addressing and DHCP Servers. If you like this video, click the like button. And if you have not already, subscribe to the Pat Has Your Back channel. Thank you.